The distance between who we believe we are and who we become when pushed could fill oceans. Yet we wake each morning surprised by our capacity for cruelty, as if we had never met ourselves before. A child dreams of saving the world, and 40 years later finds themselves explaining why they had to fire someone, speaking in the measured tones of someone who has learned to sleep through their compromises. We are not corrupted by evil. We are eroded by need, worn down like stones in a river until our sharp edges disappear, and we flow wherever the current takes us. The monster is not the opposite of the good person. The monster is what remains when goodness proves insufficient to the task of living. We begin with such beautiful intentions, constructing elaborate moral systems like children building sandcastles, never noticing the tide that comes twice a day to wash away everything we thought we were. When did caring become exhaustion? When did exhaustion become indifference? And when did indifference become cruelty? These transitions happen so gradually, we mistake them for wisdom. The good person believes their goodness will protect them from becoming what they despise. We think goodness is armor, when it is actually so soft and permeable and vulnerable to every small wound that life inflicts. The first compromise feels like pragmatism, the second like necessity, the third like common sense, and by the 100th, we have forgotten we ever had principles at all. Watch a good person discover they can hurt someone and get away with it. Watch them learn they can take what they want if they just stop caring about the consequences for others. Watch them realize that their goodness was always conditional on circumstances that no longer exist. The child who cries when they accidentally step on an ant becomes the adult who rationalizes why some people deserve less consideration than others. We are not corrupted by power. We are corrupted by powerlessness, by the grinding realization that our good intentions change nothing, while our bad intentions at least get results. Some of our parents swore they would never raise their voices, but became the parents who scream. Because screaming works faster than patience when we are asking for the impossible again. We do not become monsters through a single moment of choice. We become monsters through 1,000 tiny surrenders to the logic of survival. The idealist becomes the pragmatist, becomes the cynic, becomes the predator. Each transformation feeling like evolution until someone points out we are moving backward. We begin believing we can love everyone and end believing we cannot trust anyone. The good person thinks their goodness comes from their nature when it actually comes from their circumstances. And when circumstances change, they discover they were never as good as they thought they were. We mistake privilege for virtue, mistake safety for morality, mistake the absence of temptation for the presence of character. The person who has never been hungry judges the person who steals food. The person who has never been desperate judges the person who lies for advantage. The person who has never been powerless judges the person who abuses power when they finally get it. Good people become monsters because goodness is not a permanent state, but a temporary arrangement between our needs and our environment. When our needs become desperate enough, our goodness becomes negotiable, and we discover we are capable of justifying anything if the alternative is losing what we cannot bear to lose. The mother who would never harm a child becomes the mother who destroys her daughter's happiness to keep her close because she cannot survive being alone. The father who preaches honesty becomes the father who lies to his son about why mommy left, because the truth would require admitting he drove her away. We become monsters not by rejecting our values, but by redefining them. Not by abandoning our principles, but by making exceptions that swallow the rules. We compromise with reality until reality compromises us. We adapt to corruption until corruption adapts to us. We make peace with injustice until injustice makes war on our conscience. Good people become monsters because monsters are just good people who got tired of being good without being rewarded for it. tired of following rules that others break without consequence, tired of caring about people who do not care about them. We discover that goodness is often punished, while selfishness is often rewarded, that honesty creates vulnerability, while deception creates advantage, that kindness invites exploitation, while cruelty commands respect. The good person who refuses to learn these lessons remains good and remains powerless. We do not choose evil. We simply choose ourselves. We don't want to hurt others. We want to help ourselves and learn that these two desires cannot always coexist. We begin with the assumption that we can be good and successful, moral and effective, caring and protected. And we end with the knowledge that these combinations require more strength than we possess. The good person who cannot bear to disappoint others becomes the monster who destroys others rather than disappoint themselves, who would rather be hated for their honesty than ignored for their kindness, who would rather be feared for their cruelty than dismissed for their compassion. We become what we need to become to survive, and then justify what we became to ourselves, telling stories about the corruption of others while carefully avoiding the question of our choices. The good person believes they are different from the monsters they judge, that they have moral strength the others lacked, that their goodness runs deeper than circumstances can reach. Then circumstances reach deeper than they imagined possible, and they discover they were not different after all. They were simply untested, not stronger but luckier, not better but more sheltered from the forces that reveal what we really are when everything else is stripped away. Monsters get things done while good people get things stolen from them. Monsters adapt while good people maintain principles that become irrelevant in changing conditions. Monsters understand that the world is not designed to reward goodness, but to reward effectiveness. The good person who insists on playing by rules that no longer apply becomes the victim of people who understand that rules are suggestions for those with power and commands for those without it. We learn to use power, or power uses us. We learn to manipulate, or manipulation happens to us. We learn to be strategic, or strategy is used against us. The transformation from good person to monster is often indistinguishable from the transformation from naive person to educated person, from trusting person to realistic person, from hopeful person to experienced person. What we call corruption, others call learning. What we call moral failure, others call practical wisdom. What we call becoming a monster, others call growing up. The child believes the world should be fair and spends their adult life learning why it is not, then teaching their own children to navigate unfairness with increasing skill until navigating unfairness becomes creating unfairness for others to navigate. The alternative for becoming a monster is becoming victims, and most of us discover we would rather live with the guilt of hurting others than the helplessness of being hurt by them. We choose our damage and then mistake choice for inevitability. We select our compromises and then pretend they were forced upon us. We decide what we can live with and then forget we decided anything at all. We become what we repeatedly do, and we repeatedly do what works. And what works is often what we once would have called monstrous, but have learned to call necessary. We teach ourselves to feel good about feeling bad, to take pride in our ruthlessness, to find honor in our dishonor, to discover strength in what once felt like weakness. We are really monsters when we can hurt others without hurting ourselves, when we can betray trust without losing sleep, when we can destroy innocence without remembering we once possessed it ourselves. We slide down slopes so gradually we do not realize we are falling until someone shows us how far we have traveled from where we started. And by then, the person we were feels like someone we used to know rather than someone we used to be.